You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Reason is meeting reality here on this Monday morning, and we've got a great show for you. I will be disappearing into the background, and I have a good reason for that, folks. The reason is that I've not yet showered, so I'm still wearing my pajamas, and this sweatshirt is a component of my pajamas. If you tune in later on for Everyday Ethics at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time or Crime, Corrections, and Culture at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be wearing something that does not cause me to disappear into the background because I will have been showered by then and shaved, by the way. The thing is, I woke up this morning at 1 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I got up and started working at about 2. And then I went back to bed at 6 till 10, and, well, you get the picture. Persephone, before I get into... Oh, I got a new episode of The Rational Egoist out right now, by the way, with Andy Bernstein. We reviewed this movie he made me watch. She wore a yellow ribbon. He was a fan. I was not. And also, Persephone, Jim Valiant, and I had a great show this morning. Jesus Christ, I'm tired. This past Saturday on our weekend edition of this program, and we discussed religion versus life. Great show. Persephone, before we get to... Oh, and we love super chats and super stickers, folks. Please remember that. Okay, Persephone, give them whatever info you've got to give them, and then I'll get to the other stuff.
So, please don't forget to follow us on Twitch. At this week sometime, we'll be picking one subscriber on Twitch and sending them a free piece of merch or a copy of Down the Rabbit Hole, whichever one that person decides. Please go and follow us on Twitch. We need like 8 more subscribers. Please. Also, find all of the shows on Spotify. Capitalist Corner, Everyday Ethics, and Crime, Corrections, and Culture. We are slowly catching up, so go and find them on Spotify and leave a rating, please, because it's very helpful. Also, please go check out the website. We post the recommended reading. We post the show notes. We have merch. It's all very fun. And
there's a lot of reading for today.
There is so much.
I'm going to keep it real with you. There's a lot of reading, and there's a reason why there's a lot of reading, because I got up early this morning. So what today, the topics for today came about. I was reading an article in Reason magazine about an interview they did with Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, where he talked about that the United States of America is a creedal nation, a nation based on ideas. And look at that. Look at that.
Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. I can retire now. Goodbye, everybody. Okay, no. Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm sorry it's been a rough couple weeks. Okay, so, and the article talked about how the influencer class gets this wrong. Now, interestingly, I just watched a movie called Face in the Crowd, which is relevant to the whole influencer dynamic. So I decided to pair the two, do 2 topics, base one on influencers, one on America as a creedal nation. And of course, we cannot forget about the disaster that is the Iranian war that people keep telling me still, no, I don't know that it's a failure. Yeah, it's a failure. Put it this way, I don't care what happens from here on out. They could wipe this regime off the planet, and you could end up with a democratic Iran. And from the point of view of the American interest in the rule of law in our founding documents, it's a failure, right? So it would be good if that were to happen in the sense that, of course, having more people free and having evil gone is a good thing. But that doesn't undo the negative effects on America. Anyway, so let me tell you first about this movie that I watched called Face in the Crowd. Face in the Crowd, it starred... Nice, Akira. So Face in the Crowd is with Andy Griffith is in it, Walter Matthau, Patricia Neal. Patricia Neal, if I'm not mistaken, check this from me, Persephone. I believe she played Dominique Francone in the movie The Fountainhead. But anyways, so this movie starts off, there's a drunk tank, in essence, a local, a county jail, whatever you want to call it, local police department, a bunch of guys sleeping in a dorm on the floor, basically. So this woman comes in, and she's from a local radio station, and she has a show called Face in a Crowd, and she wants to get, the prisoners to talk. None of them will, and none of them will, play music with what she wants them to do. She goes over to Andy Griffith. He's asleep, but he gets up and he decides that he will do it. So he plays. And this guy just is made for communication, right? He's got everything you'd want in a communicator. So she ends up giving him a job. They get him a job at the station on the show Face in the Crowd. He blows up. He ends up with a tremendous amount of influence. And it's all based on bullshit, right? It's all, this movie was so prophetic. It's all based on emotion and catering to people's sort of sense of victimhood and the sense of not having a voice, and that's how he gets real big. And then they end up everybody finds out that the guy's a goddamn fraud, and he loses his influence. What made me watch this was an article I read by Jonah Goldberg the other day where he talked about how that's not actually what happens. Because in the movie, once he got caught on the hot mic, everybody abandoned him. But in reality, Donald Trump's been caught on a hot mic a million times. Tucker Carlson was caught. Jonah didn't point this out, but Tucker Carlson was caught. In his email messages, and that didn't cost him really. So, not in terms of followers. So I was, I did a little research here into a bunch of things. Let me just go here and see if I can find them. Persephone, here it is. I looked up, for instance, the history of influencers, the history of the influencer concept. And the idea ultimately goes all the way back to Aristotle. And Aristotle, when he wrote his book on rhetoric, there were three things that he said mattered. And there's words he has... I forget exactly. Ethos, logos, and pathos, I believe, are the three words. And it's character, logic, and emotion are the three things that a good influencer or a good speaker needs to have. He needs to have people need to trust him. He needs to make a reasonable case, and he needs to be, connect emotionally with the audience. It seems to me that by and large, what occurs today is the emotional connection. I don't know if that's because people are no longer able to assess character, if people don't have objective standards for character, if they don't care about character, whatever. I don't know what it is, but I know it's the emotional connection that leads these people to buy everything else, by and large, not in all cases. So the first real influencer in America that I could find was Father Charles Coughlin. He was born October 25th, 1891. He was a priest. He ended up with a radio show, and he was bombastic, all that. Then there were a few others, and we've got them. You can read about them, but nothing significant, but there were more. But the real first one that catches my attention is Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh was very bombastic. He gained an incredible audience. The audience, he had a connection with them that is still there, that even goes beyond his death, goes beyond everything he said. Whenever he would switch his mind on things, they stayed with him. The one thing, however, really that I don't know that they would have stuck with him is if he would have told the truth about Donald Trump. Because Rush changed when Trump came along. All of a sudden, he was defending Trump. Trump was for tariffs. Rush was for free trade. Trump was touting non-interventionism. Rush had been an interventionist. Trump accused George W. Bush of lying about the Iraq War when Rush supported Bush and defended him nonstop during the Iraq War. Not only that, but there was a candidate running who was everything that Rush had talked about. Rush actually said this candidate was the closest thing to Ronald Reagan, who was Rush's hero, and that was Ted Cruz. But Rush ultimately didn't endorse Cruz. Rush didn't endorse Trump either, but it was clear that he was supporting Trump. We also can look at Sean Hannity as another one, and Mark Levin. And then there's now a new wave of influencers. Your Alex Joneses, your Candace Owens, your Tucker Carlsons, who now are in like a beef with the old school people. Now, these people are all fucking grifters, right? I mean, they're not people that are making logical arguments. They're catering to an audience. For you fans of The Fountainhead, or anybody that's read The Fountainhead, this is reminiscent to me of Gail Wyman. Gail Wyman thought that he was the leader, thought that he had all the influence, when in reality he was just catering to what people wanted to hear. And the second he tried to switch it up, they turned on him. Which leads me to believe, not the Gail Wyman alone, but the evidence to me indicates that influencers may not actually be all that influential. There's some cases, as in Trump, where people just go back and forth with whatever he wants. But by and large, I think that these influencers just glob on to dynamics that are already out there. So, like I said, if you look it up and you find out what are the characteristics of the people that follow these influencers, they're people that have a grievance, people that feel voiceless, and they feel like these influencers are giving them a voice, are speaking up for them, are defending them in the way that a childhood protector would defend you from a bully type of thing. And I think that there's a lot to that. So then I think about also myself, for instance. When I was on the Todd Feinberg show, most of the audience were Trump supporters. They actually, some of them turned on Todd because Todd predicted that Trump would lose the 2020 election. He didn't say he wanted Trump to lose. He just said, I think the evidence shows he's going to lose, and people turned on him, started calling him a liberal, whatever. And I would go on there and just criticize Trump. I criticize everybody. I say what I think, and I don't give a damn. If I disagree with you, I disagreed with Todd on the air. I disagreed with the callers on the air, But a lot of them, I did have a slight following on the show, the people that liked me. But a lot of the people disliked me because of the stances I took. And I don't just mean they were like, wow, I disagree with this guy, but he makes good arguments. I mean, they really disliked me. So, and then I enter into the podcast field, this field here. I am never going to be the person that's going to tell people what they want to hear. I don't give a fuck. I would rather you put a bullet in my forehead and end it before I'm going to be the type of sniveling bitch politician who's going to cater to people's feelings, their insecurities, whatever. I'm going to say what I think. Now, that gets me into trouble. Not what I mean by trouble is it causes people to go away because people want to hear what they want. Let me, so for instance, when I was criticizing I want to start off, when I got out of prison, I was trying to meld the libertarians, the objectivists, everybody that I had studied in prison, bring them together. Slowly but surely, I alienated the libertarians because I didn't buy into their, a lot of their anti-Israel, anti-Jew crap or their conspiracy crap. So I got alienated from them. When you look at the objectivist movement, there were the objectivists, sort of the Andy Bernstein objectivists, the MAGA objectivists, right? So the Scott Schiffs, the whatever the hell his partner there, his name is, William Swig, those people, they disliked me because I would speak against Trump. I'm TDS, I'm an leftivist, that sort of stuff. But there were people who I thought were the honest objectivists. Salzman, yes. But Salzman didn't hate me off the muscle. He and I got into it later on because of something else that I don't want to get into. So, but there were the people that I thought were the honest objectivists, the anti-Trump objectivists, the objectivists who seemed to defend reason, defend the Constitution, that sort of thing, right? Now, Andy Bernstein and some of those pro-Trump objectivists, their argument was, well, the left is so horrible, we have to side with Trump. He's the only thing that can do this. And there was a lot of people that were on my side arguing against that. Enter the Iran war. Nothing, not one single thing changed about me when we entered the Iranian war. Nothing. When I say nothing, I mean nothing changed. Anybody who knew me would have been able to predict with 100% accuracy what my stance on that war would have been. It's that simple. But the people started telling me that I was supporting injustice now. The same people who called Andy Bernstein an invader and irrational for his stance that the left is so bad that we need to support Trump now are saying that the Iranians are so bad that we need to throw out our founding documents, throw out the fact that we hate Trump and think he's equivalent to Hitler, and we just need to go at it. It's the same people telling me I'm promoting injustice, I'm rooting for the Iranians. I don't know about prominent, but a prominent objectivist online literally told me yesterday that when it comes to my arguments on the Iranian war, I refuse to be nailed down. Like, what are you talking about? I refuse to be nailed down. I've nailed myself to the floor on this issue. There's no equivocation. None. Right? But that's what I've been told. I, of course, was unceremoniously canceled from appearing at Rosie Ginsburg's irreplaceable Spark conference. Said that it wasn't because of the Iranian war. Forgive me if I'm incredulous about that. Okay. My point in all this is that I have been consistent 100%. But I often say things to people they don't want to hear, or I differ with them. Now, people differ with me, and I don't care. I don't get mad at them. I don't hate them. Andy Bernstein's a good friend of mine. Jim Valiant and I differ all the time. Jim Valiant's a good friend of mine. I've disagreed with Mark on this program. Disagreement doesn't cause me to turn away from people, right? People can honestly disagree. But in multiple occasions, I've had people turn away from me when I disagreed with them. So what does all this mean? What it all means to me is that to make it in this space is going to take a tremendous amount of effort on my part. Sometimes I get discouraged, but I really think that this influencer problem, this demagogue problem, the problem of people who choose their positions and then find reasons to support them, that's a big problem in this country. I like numbers. This got to be Scott Schiff because nobody else on the planet is that stupid. Yes, from what I understand, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson also think you have to remain hydrated. I mean, so fucking what? But anyway, so Ian Gilmore says, I don't agree with them, but I see a possible consistent argument on the other side here. I'm sorry, Ian, but if in early February you were saying Trump is like Hitler, ICE is like the Gestapo, and you were saying that ICE is not legitimate law enforcement and touting the rule of law, no. No, sir. I'm sorry. It's not consistent, Ian. It's just not. It's consistent in the sense of this. Criminals, for instance, let me use criminals as an analogy, have one overriding principle, right? I want what I want when I want it, and everything is directed to that end. And so I'm living an unprincipled life because nothing matters. Now, if you want to hone in on that and say, well, you are being principled because you're aiming for that, it's kind of a butchering of the term. So to say that these people are consistent, if what you mean is that they've elevated Israel and they've elevated Iran to the point that those things are more important than virtually everything else, then yeah, I could say that's consistent. But then you have nothing with which to criticize Andy Bernstein, because he's just as convinced that the left is the all-encompassing evil. And you know what? He has a lot of good points about the left. All right. Now I turn it over to Persephone. I've given my little speech. I want to see what you think about. I don't want to make it all about me. I kind of did because I'm emotional. I know I did it, but I really want to talk about the influencer stuff, Persephone. So what are your thoughts?
I think that to me, one of the most important things that you kind of left out was the parasocial nature that the parasocial nature of these relationships and how that influences how much people will buy from the people that they follow, because these influencers not create, they encourage this parasocial relationship. And because of things like live streaming, where the viewers feel like they have a closer relationship to the person that they're watching than they really do, it allows them to buy more completely into what that person is saying and to accept things from that influencer that they wouldn't accept from another person, a person who they don't follow as closely. And I thought that was really interesting. And it is true, because you're willing to accept a lot more from a friend than you are from a random person on the street. And what a lot of these influencers rely on is creating that parasocial relationship, making their viewers feel like they are friends, responding to comments, getting on live, letting people see into their day-to-day life. And that creates this sense of intimacy, this sense of closeness. And it allows people to buy stuff from influencers that they wouldn't buy from corporations. And in marketing, this is like a psychological thing that we use in marketing. When we're selling a product or a company, one of the things that we do is we give behind the scenes. We allow people to see the people behind the brand, because people are more likely to trust a person than they are to trust a corporation or a brand or an organization. So if you have something coming from an organization or a business, it's a lot more difficult for people to trust that. Whereas if it's coming from someone who they think that they have like a close relationship with, like an intimate relationship, it's so much easier for them to go, well, I don't really know all the facts, but he wouldn't lie to me. Why would he lie to me? Like, I know him. He's so trustworthy. I've seen his life. So they rely on that. And I think that's a big important factor.
So have you ever heard of this saying that you can't reason a person out of what the person wasn't reasoned into?
No.
Oh, it's a saying. I don't know who came up with the saying, but it's a saying. I just don't know I don't know if there is. I'm very, what's the word I'm looking for here? I've been very pessimistic lately. I'm really getting pessimistic about a lot of things. And I just don't know. I don't know how to even... The people, I get it. Now, people will tell me, and people do, this isn't unique to the objectivists or to the libertarians. This is common in all movements. And I agree. The problem I have is I would have expected differently from these movements, right? I would have expected better. And I have been woefully disappointed. And so... I like, what should we do? I guess is my question to you, Persephone. How do we uphold integrity, but also gain an audience? Because if I'm tuning into a show, I'll tell you a show that I like. I don't listen to it because I'm busy, but I used to listen to it. It was Making Sense with Sam Harris. I disagree with Sam Harris a lot on a lot of issues, but I always thought he's honest, right? And he's committed to reason. So we may differ, but I still know he's not bullshitting me. He's going to give me the straight dirt. Right? So that's what I like to tune into. And he evidently, a lot of people did. He, he's got a decent following, a decent audience. But how do we do that? How do we? I mean, you, me, Mark, Jim Valiant. Even though he's not officially a part of the station, he is the channel. I'm sorry, he is part of it. So how do we reach people? How do we get the people that even when they disagree with us, say, you know what? But I think that they are honest, and I think they're informed. Like I always say here, fact check me, please. Fact check me. It's not like it's a hard thing to fact check somebody, right? I don't put bullshit out there. I think I gave you 24 articles this morning in preparation for this episode from multiple sources, right? So what do we do? Christopher Smith, thank you, Christopher Smith. He says, I think with your work ethic, you'll do it. Thank you, Christopher. I really appreciate that. And Ian Gilmore, you are right. Praise those who show integrity. I agree. And the problem is if I come on this show and I just praise those who have integrity, I'm going to have about 10 people that I know. I mean, because I don't know everybody, right? Even the good people in the audience, I don't know them in depth, but I could still praise some of you. Ian Gilmore always comes off to me as intellectually honest. Christopher Smith, when I've disagreed with him, we still, get through it. He's not somebody that says you disagree with me, so you're a dick. But I don't know what I'm supposed to, how much of that you can do. Ian Gilmore says he thinks Rozzi has written him off because he thinks he's mindlessly against Trump. So Mr. Ginsburg refuses to engage with those who disagree with him. Refuses. He can say he does, and he can point to the occasion when he's had somebody on, whatever. It's very, very, very easy to uphold the worldview when you won't engage its opposite, when you won't look into things, right? For instance, let me just give you for instance that I find a lot of people do, and they don't understand the difference. It's absolutely true. Iran is an evil, barbaric regime. They're Islamic fundamentalist mystics who have attacked American interests and threaten to do so in the future. That is 100% true. It's also 100% true that the United States of America, with Britain, in order to get oil interests, helped to orchestrate a veritable coup. And we can disagree about the language or what what it actually was, whatever. They helped to further empower the Shah. There's no disputing that. Before America and Britain got involved, the Shah had less power than he did after, and this was a guy who was very oppressive of his own people. America also provided cover for him after the 79 revolution and wouldn't turn him over. And I just ask you, if we had a war criminal president, a president who, let's use Trump. Suppose Trump is indicted when all of this is said and done in some other country, takes him in, protects him, and refuses to turn him over. Do you think that we would say, oh no, that's cool, we're going to respect their sovereignty? Because I guarantee you we would. So then Iran, they take the hostages. Fucked up, yes. I'm not supporting it. I'm not condoning it. I'm saying it didn't exist in a vacuum. It's also true that America backed Saddam Hussein against Iran. Saddam Hussein was evil, but we backed him against the evil Iranians. To think that that has no effect on how the Iranians view us? Come on. And I'm not, it doesn't justify the Iranians, but it's still part of the equation that you just can't ignore because you want to. It's true, the Iranians enriched uranium to 60%, which puts them within striking range of a weapon. That's true, and that's dangerous. It's also true that at their best, they wouldn't have an ICBM to put that on for at least 10 years. It's also true that all intelligence assessments since 2007 have said they're not pursuing a nuclear weapon. It's also true that in 2003, they explicitly said they weren't They were discontinuing their nuclear program. It's also true that under the JCPOA, whether you think it's a good deal or not, the Iranians were at 3% enrichment according to everybody, including the dickhead who's the president of the United States now. It's true that Trump got us out of that deal and then they went to 60%. It's also true that the war is unconstitutional. It's also true that it's now in violation of the War Powers Resolution. None of this means that Iran is a good country. But you can't make decisions if you aren't willing to be honest. Just tell the truth about everything. And what, I mean, I don't know what the problem with that is. Persephone.
The problem is that if they're honest, then they have to be honest about the fact that they're willing to throw their principles away for something that they want more, for something that they think is more important. They can't be honest.
Well, yeah, and what I'm running into now is the idea that, well, yeah, this war was worth it. Trump's just not doing it right. As if that wasn't known before the war started. Like, it's like you supported him going to war, knowing what he was, and now try to excuse yourself for your bad judgment by saying that he's just not doing what you wanted him to do.
Yeah, but again,
if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. I'm sorry. Bullshit.
Yeah, it's also what they wanted the war to be about versus what it was about. There was a lot of support for the war based on wishes and hopes and dreams and things that weren't based in reality at all, from a lot of people, and they can't admit that what they wanted was never going to happen. Their support for the war and their willingness to ignore like how unconstitutional it was and all of those things was all based on a pipe dream that people told them wasn't true.
Yeah, so this kind of is my point. Yes, Christopher Smith, Iran hates America and hates the West. That's true. That's true. But everything else I said is true also. And if you're going to make decisions about war, you should recognize the whole truth. So it was stated yesterday that the people who, it was Razi stated it on Facebook, that Akira and I are elevating things like the Constitution and religion and Dianetics above reality. Let me just do a quick walkthrough about this issue. The Constitution, written by the founders, is squarely the result of looking at reality. The founders of America, if you know anything about them, studied the Roman republics. They read everything from Cicero to Machiavelli to Locke to Montesquieu. They studied the Venetian Republic. They studied everything that they could find, right? And they found that the best way to secure liberty was to have a written constitution with enumerated powers that restrained the government and a separation of powers. Those were inductive conclusions based on a monumental amount of study. They weren't divorced from reality, not even close. And what have we learned since then? That even with those parameters set by the Constitution, our politicians will violate it. And the more they violate it, the easier it gets to violate it and the less constraining it is. And if you think that you're going to delimit the violation to the one issue that you happen to be as your all, you're wrong. So now you violated the Constitution. This is, again, inductive conclusion, straight from reality. The Constitution was violated. Numerous objectives were stated to go fight this war. It was to free the Iranian people. It was regime change. It was to obliterate their nuclear capabilities, obliterate their navy, obliterate their missiles, stop them from being able to fund terror proxies. I mean, they've been there. How many times has the war been declared a victory by Trump? Meanwhile, what's happening to our gas prices and what's happening to our credibility around the world? Do you think that for the deterrence people, and I'm a big believer in deterrence, do you think people are being deterred by Donald Trump threatening over and over again, throwing tantrums, stamping his feet, how he's going to wipe them off the map when he's not going to? At least he hasn't done it yet, and he keeps threatening it. So you violated the Constitution, or in violation of the War Powers Resolution, and for what? That's all based squarely in reality, sir. Every single bit of it. And while the Razzies of the world now are bitching about the way Trump is executing the war, without admitting for 1 second that they were wrong to support him going to war, that's a lack of principle. A principle that is derived from reality, that we should be honest and admit when we are wrong. There's been one person, since this whole thing started, that disagreed with me at the beginning but told me I was right subsequently. One person had that type of character. Jim Valiant. That's it. One. They still defend it. They still defend the judgment. It doesn't make any difference. So stop. You want to tell me I'm divorced with reality, brother? I live in reality, and I've lived in realities that you couldn't fucking stand for 30 seconds. My whole life has been about reality. The things that I've been through, the things that I've dealt with would make you puke. He disagreed with me, but once the war started, he and Mark agreed with me. So, yes, Natan also. That's right. I'm sorry. I forgot about him. So, before you start telling people they can't live in reality or they're not, look at my body of work. Look at what I'm willing to suffer for what I believe. And then look at what you're willing to suffer. And the answer is nothing. Because Rosie Ginsburg is a politician. Nothing more. That is reality. All right. Got myself all wound up and got into this whole fucking diatribe. I wish I didn't. I want to move away from this. I really do. I don't want to be caught into a petty objectivist beef. Want to know why? Quite frankly, because the objectivist movement is this big and I want to be this big. You can't see it because I'm disappearing. So I want out of it. I don't want to keep delving into this. So Persephone, I'm going to task you with restraining me from getting involved in internecine objectivist beefs. It's not worth it, right?
Happily.
So that's your position. That's your job. Okay. America as a
add it to the list.
What?
I said I'll just add it to the list.
No, Ian, you're correct. Ian says, then why did you post about it on Facebook? I agree. That's what I'm saying, is that I'm very torn about this. But ultimately, I'm recognizing that it's not in my long-term interest, right, to keep engaging in it, and I want to move away from it. But like somebody that has a food-eating problem, they might need a friend to tell them, hey, stay away from the fridge, fat ass. I need to be told, stay away from this stuff, dumbass. Right?
Your mic is doing a funny thing. Just switch it on and off again, please.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you can comment, Persephone, and then we can move on to the Creedal Nation stuff, because that really interests me.
I don't want to comment. I'm tired. I'm tired of all of it. There's no point. There's no point in commenting on it. The people who are gonna be bitches are gonna be bitches no matter what you say.
That's true.
But when you said, like, how do you maintain integrity and continue to build the channel?
Yes.
You don't go after the people who are buying into this kind of thing. You don't try to appeal to the people who have already bought bullshit. You appeal to the people who are looking for reason and rationality, to the people who are newer. Get in on the ground floor of the people who are trying to better their lives and who want to change things, not people who have already bought into bullshit propaganda from other people
All right.
who shall remain nameless.
So, Creedal Nation, America, based on ideas or is it based on culture and heritage? That's the fight that's happening now. On the right. The left, I don't think really gives a shit. According to, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch told Reason and several other outlets that America is a creedal nation. He says the Declaration of Independence had three great ideas in it: that all of us are equal, that each of us has inalienable rights given to us by God, not government, and that we have the right to rule ourselves. Our nation is not founded on a religion. It's not based on common culture, even, or heritage. It's based on those ideas. We're a creedal nation. There's a lot of these dickheads on the right who I want all the so-called conservatives who believe stuff like this launched into the sun from a guy with the name Tony Rigatoni. Fake name, probably. I'd hope so. That's actually what it says there, too. I simply refuse to accept the idea that every other people group on planet Earth are allowed to have a country to call home except for Native Americans, meaning white people, or people born in America, not just white people. Also Curtis Yarvin, Jeremy Carl. A lot of these folks are very upset about this. But if you look at the history of America, I'm sorry. The Declaration of Independence is a philosophical political document that states the creed of the country. The philosophy of that is, no, he doesn't mean just white people, Ian. He means people that were born in America. He doesn't mean Native Americans in terms of Indian tribes or Native American tribes. He's talking about people born here. The founders, as I talked about earlier, were deeply, deeply, deeply influenced by the likes of Cicero, by Machiavelli, by John Locke, by Montesquieu. These were all ideas. They were men of the Enlightenment. That's what the nation was founded on. Now, you've got people that will quote out of, way out of context certain of the founders and say, look, they wanted it to be they didn't want it to be a creedal nation. They wanted it to be a Christian nation with, a common heritage, that sort of thing. One of them actually quotes John Adams in this regard, where John Adams said that, our Constitution is made for a moral people, while completely ignoring the fact that John Adams also wrote that this country has never been and never will be a Christian nation. He also cites George Washington without talking about how George Washington said that all religions are welcome here. So, I mean, whether you look at it, by the way, this guy also said the founders drew on philosophers who touted Christian principles, including Plato and Aristotle. Both who predated Christianity by hundreds of years. So whatever. I mean, that's, he also said that John Jay co-authored the Constitution. He wasn't even at the convention. So that's the intellectual accuracy that these people are concerned with. But to me, there's no way you can get around it that America was founded on ideas, and it's those ideas that make the country great. Now, citizenship and what actually defines America as a country, of course, you're going to have a geographic region with borders that delimit it. And of course, there's going to be citizens because that's what nations are. What the hell are we talking about Mossoff for?
I've been talking about him for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know where he comes from here. But either way, that kind of threw me off a little bit. But anyway, so yeah, a nation, but the nation is founded on ideas, and that's what fundamentally differentiates America from everywhere else, is the fact that we were founded on ideas. Persephone, what do you think about this?
So, when I was reading that first one, from the American Conservative, I was just very confused. Actually, when I was reading all of it, I was very confused. What do they want it to be? Can you explain that to me? What do they want America to be, or to mean?
Okay, so what they want ultimately. Sorry, Gemini. It has days he's been making I don't know what the hell that arguing. I don't know what the hell that says. Okay.
You're getting distracted.
Yeah, because I like to have the audience participate, but what they do is they do voice to text, and it screws up everything. Okay, what they believe, like there's this group called Heritage Americans. You can look that up, Heritage Americans. They want us to have common descent, meaning that we've descended from a given people, so that we share basically an ethnicity or a nationality. They believe that America is rooted in Protestant Christianity, and so that's the religion of the country. They believe that the fact that some people's ancestors worked to build the country while others didn't gives them special entitlements here. That sort of thing. They think that the English language is some sort of sacrosanct language that binds us all together. Now, some of these things, I think that you do need somewhat of a common culture, but not in the way that they think. They have a specific idea of what American culture is and should be, and if it strays from that, it's not American. That's the best I can give you.
So that's sort of what I understood, and it just seems so dumb to me. The article from the American Conservative starts off with how the royal wedding and how it was so quintessentially British, and how come Americans don't have anything that is blah blah, and it's just so dumb. It's just such a dumb argument. So America, you guys have got loads of people from loads of different backgrounds. South Africa, we have 11 official languages. We have so many different cultures. There is not one.
But that's a terror. That's not a good example.
Just wait. I'm making a point here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, America and South Africa are similar like that. We've got loads of different cultures, but there is one South African culture. America has many different cultures, but you can pick an American out of the crowd very easily. You can easily identify American culture, just like you can identify South African culture. Whether that person is like white, Malay, colored, black, Zulu, Xhosa, you can identify a South African. You can identify an American.
Persephone, would you clarify what you mean by colored? Because when you say colored,
oh, right. Okay. So colored, I don't mean the slur for black people in America. In South Africa, colored is a racial group. It is a culture. If you call a colored person black, you're insulting them. It is a thing. It's with a U.
okay,
Coloure.
well, that's British. That's just British English, though.
Yes, but it's important.
All right.
It is
so
just,
in America, this is just the one thing I find interesting. So colored people used to be the preferred terminology in America. But now you can't say colored person, but you can say person of color.
Yeah, which is really
It's
weird.
very, 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 very bizarre. Akira Felix is right about Adam Mazoff. Ian, Akira Felix is correct. So that's what I want to say before I move on is the thing that fundamentally differentiates America from South Africa, look at the ideas America's was founded on. I mean, that's the core of America. So I want to get to the latest news.
About
I just saw a headline. I got distracted. I'm prone to distraction. I'm sorry. The war in Iran, the latest news. Evidently, the Iranians submitted what they're willing to agree to. I guess they're not willing to give up their enriched uranium, and they want control over the Strait of Hormuz. Trump says that this is unacceptable. He then says they've been laughing at us. They will be laughing no more, with another threat of, how much damage he's going to do. The problem here for me is this. If you go to war, you go to war, right? You don't half-step. You don't bullshit. I think that Trump is really caught between poll numbers and approval, which he wants, and destroying the Iranians, I think, which he wants, he doesn't understand that other people aren't playing by his rules, that they don't care, that the people he's threatening aren't concerned about dying. It doesn't bother them the way that it would bother him, especially when you keep threatening and do nothing. Right? He's said for months they're eager to make a deal. They don't want that now that you can't make a deal with these people. Well, which is it? Are they eager to make a deal that they're ready to kiss your ass, or are they just these unreasonable people unwilling to make even the best of deals? And why is making a deal even the determining factor here?
Especially if they're so evil and there's such an imminent threat that you had to go to war, and congressional like all of this thing, it's not important because there's such an imminent threat. Well, then why are you so eager to make a deal? If someone was holding a gun to my head, I wouldn't be eager to make a deal with them. I wouldn't be like, well, you can shoot me in the arm, right? Just don't shoot me in the head. If they were if they're so evil.
Yes. Trump said this thing would be over in 6 to 8 weeks. So then you point out, well, he was wrong. Then people say to me, you think you can do this? No, he said 4 to 6 weeks, actually, I think. Maybe it was 6 to 8. I don't know. There's so many different timelines. But whatever. The bottom line is he said it would be accomplished faster than it is. And then they say, oh, it's unreasonable to say that it would be over that quick. You're telling me I'm being unreasonable. But hold on. That's what he said. They said, you can't say that unconditional surrender, that's the only thing that matters. That's what he said. Right? So every objective, every standard that he puts out there and then violates, it's just not to be taken seriously because people want to hold up their belief. That's what's happening.
I'm just so tired of this. I long for the day that we can stop.
Douglas Murray? I don't know. These guys in the chat get into these separate conversations.
Yeah. I long for the day that we can stop talking about this.
I want it to go away myself.
I really do. I'm so tired because it's every time, no matter what happens, no matter what bizarre thing Trump says or whatever Iran does, it's all the same thing. It's just reiterations of the same nonsense over and over and over again, and you're screaming into the void.
Well, you know what, though, Persephone, this much I will say, that maybe, and sometimes you are just speaking to the choir, but I do think that the people who are rational, the people who do look at the evidence, who are concerned with truth, need to be able to go someplace where they can get that. Yeah, so that is good.
It's all very true. And also something that you said on crime corrections and culture a little while ago, you said we're repeating the same thing. But it's important for people who are maybe new.
Yes,
because
they haven't heard the same.
Yeah, who haven't heard the same thing 18,000 times. It's just tiring. It's tiring to read the same thing over and over again and to see people fighting the same fight and making the same points and making the same non-points, and it's just tiring. Propaganda makes you tired. We must keep fighting the irrational. Very true.
That's true. Steve has game, and Greg Lewis is correct also. So the question the other day was, what has been their favorite comment in the comment section? And the only one that answered it was Akira Felix. Akira's answer might be one of Lee's, like the one where she said, I've never done anything wrong in my entire life. That was the only answer that we got. So Larry Sharp, I'm going to give the capitalist thought of the day now, and then Persephone is going to ask you a question. Larry Sharp, I went to the Libertarians of, oh God, I can't remember the name of the county in New York, begins with a D, Dutchess County in New York. And Larry Sharp, the candidate for governor right now, somewhat of a friend of mine, he gave a speech. And in that speech, he talked about letting pessimism not get to you. And he told the story about a guy that was in, I believe it was in Normandy Beach. And the guy was cowering, which was understandable in my view, on the ground. And his superior told him, pick up your rifle and go fight. That's the best thing that you can do. you have to pick up your rifle and fight. And Larry Sharp says that that's analogous to what we must do. That no matter how disillusioned or how disincentivized or how, I can't remember the other dis word I'm thinking of. Maybe Persephone can help me out. No matter what, we need to pick up our rifle and go out and fight. So, yes, there's the irrational elements out there, and they seem to be overwhelming, but often they're just the loudest voices. And we need to continue to make disheartened, it could be discouraged, was actually what I'm looking for, but disheartened, Jim helped too. We need to keep going, and we need to understand that it is our own lives that we are fighting for. It's our own principles. And, the alternative to fighting for a rational world is to just accept the irrational. And I refuse to do that. If you ever saw the movie Mobsters, a young Charlie Luciano meets with Arnold Rothstein, and Arnold Rothstein tells him, if you have balls and brains, you don't need armies. We've got balls and brains. Let's get this done. All right, Sephi, go ahead and ask him the question.
Okay, my question for today is, tell me a joke. In the comment section of this YouTube video, tell me a joke. Tell us a joke. What's your favorite joke? What's a joke that you find really funny? That's my question.
I don't know. That seems a little off to me, but okay, we'll go with that.
Tiny violin.
Okay. I had a friend go before this judge one time, and this judge was known to be a real smartass. So one time my friend John Candela and I got arrested. I shouldn't have put his name out there. But anyway, we were 17 years old, and we got arrested because I stole gas from a gas station. And what I mean is I pulled up, I filled up the car, and took off. So we got arrested, and the judge asked us our name, and we told him, he says, Liebowitz and Candela, huh? Sounds like a law firm. Right? That's what he said. So he always did stuff like that. So a buddy of mine goes, he would say he would do the play the violin thing for people when they'd be sad about going to jail, right? So a buddy of mine, he's in front of him, and he's a drug addict, and he's trying to get his life together, and the judge says to him, are you employed? And the kid says, well, I'm starting a new job tomorrow. And the judge says, have you ever seen the movie Little Orphan Annie? And then he sings that song to him, tomorrow. All right. I've got a million funny stories, by the way, when it comes to cops and my own stupid behavior. But anyways, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time today. We'll be back for Everyday Ethics. I know Persephone's going to have a great topic. 3:15 p.m. Eastern time today, Crime, Corrections, and Culture. We're discussing the great book, Inside the Criminal Mind, by the great Dr. Stanton Samanow. Other than that, we will be back here tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern time. And who knows, Mark Pellegrino might even show up. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for being rational. Between now and whenever we see you again, please check your premises. Peace.